Today we're back in 7 Days to Die going over some tips, tricks and advice for new and returning players. Enough yapping, let's ride. This first section is all about something called POIs, which you may have heard a lot in other 7 Days to Die videos. What it means is points of interest. POIs are these buildings that you see throughout the game as you explore. One thing every new player should know about them is that they're not actually just buildings like homes or hospitals or hardware stores, but rather every tier 1 or higher location in the game is actually a linear dungeon similar to the type you might find in various RPGs. That's right, there's pretty much one designated route through all of these locations that you're intended to go through, which usually culminates in a hard fight and a loot room. It's quite a bit like Fallout or Skyrim in that regard, even including the legendary Skyrim doors at times, which loop you back to the start of the location so you can leave quickly. There's a few reasons you should be aware of this level design strategy as a new player, particularly if you're coming from other survival games that use a more sandbox style location system. Reason one is that the intended route is usually going to take you through every important room in the POI and make you fight every zombie, so to avoid getting lost, missing loot or missing zombies, going into the obvious opening of every POI, which is usually located near the quest beacon, will give you the full experience of the POI. Reason two is that you can break the POI sometimes by going against this route, sometimes in good ways, sometimes in bad ways. Sometimes certain zombies just won't trigger if you go the wrong way because it will miss a spawn trigger. Sometimes you can activate a spawn trigger in a way that the devs didn't intend you to and end up having a much harder fight than was intended. And sometimes these triggers can just break quest completion entirely, preventing you from finishing the mission. However, once you become familiar with all POIs in the game, you can use their linear nature to your advantage. You can skip all the fluff and go right to the end loot if you know where that end loot is, because this game has fully destructible environments, so nothing stops you just breaking into the POI wherever you would like to. You can just skip to the final fight and get the end loot, which is quite efficient if you're just looking for better gear, or you can use the same idea midway through a POI when you know you're going to wander into a trap room. You can skip it by breaking down the POI somewhere else. As a general tip, try to avoid falling through holes in POIs. The fun pimps love to trap you in rooms with no way back out and throw zombies at you. This next tip is also about POIs. When you roll up to any building in the game, you'll see an ominous skull counter on the top right. The number of red skulls indicates the tier of the POI. Side note, the orange skulls indicate the biome you're in, with harder biomes having more orange skulls. 1 red skull means tier 1, all the way through to 5 red skulls, which is tier 5, which is the highest natural POI tier in the game as of making this video. But tier 6 quests do exist, and we'll cover those in a bit. Tier 1 POIs are pretty simple generally. They very often will only have a few zombies in them, they're very small and easy to finish, and you tend to get the worst gear out of them in these crates. Tier 2s will kick up a notch a little bit, often being larger, having more zombies, and more frequently featuring more dangerous creatures like dogs and vultures, though do be careful of these even in some tier 1s, and you get even better loot from these. At tier 3, things start to get a little bit tougher, featuring even more rooms, more zombies, and often a larger fight near the end of the POI, and you'll need to bring something to unlock the end chest, either lockpicks or a mining tool. Usually, you could also do timed charges, a sledgehammer, or shotgun breaching slugs, but those are less frequently used. Tier 4s really heat up, featuring much tougher end fights and even better loot, until the final, Tier 5, which are often huge and have a lot of massive fights in them. When you first start out in the game, don't be surprised if it takes you a couple of days to complete these Tier 5s, and even if you're good at the game and can clear them efficiently, some of them still take all day just to get through. For example, the Shotgun Messiah factory is always a huge time sink. These POIs are meant to be the real tests of your skills and supplies, to say the least. You should not be going into these on day 1 if you don't know what you're doing, not just because you'll probably die, but also the loot at the end of a tier 5 POI, even in the wasteland on day 1, is going to be probably pretty shit because it's based primarily on your level. Here's an example of a day 1 level 1 character in a tier 5 wasteland POI. You get some pretty good stuff in here, but is it worth the absolute carnage you're gonna have to go through to get to it? Probably not. Unless you use the last tip I told you about and skip to the end, of course. Anyway, let's talk about those quests I mentioned earlier. So much like POI tiers, there are quest tiers. There are 6 tiers of quests which you have to unlock by doing other quests with traders. In order to unlock tier 2 quests, you will need to complete 10 tier 1s, and this continues like this at each tier. You need to do 10 of your current tier to unlock the next. However, these tiers are actually unlocked at a number value seen in your quest log. The tier of quest you do is the number it will go up by, so you don't have to do 10 of your highest quests. You can do a mix of whatever is available to you or whatever interests you. Additionally, if you join a multiplayer server late in the game and your friend drags you through a couple of tier 5s on your first day, you can complete tier 1 very quickly that way. So what are tier 6s if there's only 5 tiers of POI? Well, there is a type of quest called infestations. For each POI tier, you can take on a harder version of it called an infestation, which gives you bonus loot and has more zombies and often much harder zombies as well. So a tier 6 infestation is a tier 5 POI on steroids. They should not be taken lightly, but you will get very good loot at the end of them. While we're on the topic of quests, let's talk about the quest givers, traders. There are 5 traders in 7 Days to Die, and each one spawns exclusively in a certain biome and has a specialization. Trader Rect is the forest trader, and he specializes in food and farming. Trader Jen is in the burnt forest, and she specializes in medicine, which, by the way, because of a strange quirk of 7 Days to Die, means she actually also specializes in giving you brawling skill related stuff. This applies to all medical loot and rewards. They are for some reason looted with various brawling skill magazines and skill books. So if you're doing that kind of build, medical loot and traders are of particular use to you, in particular Jen. Trader Bob is the desert trader, and he specializes in vehicles and tools, which makes him very useful. Trader Hugh is the snow trader, and he specializes in guns and ammo, of course, making him pretty useful as well. And Joel is the wasteland trader, and he specializes in armor. You'll be able to find each trader in that order as you complete the quest tiers I mentioned. Of course, you can just explore and find them naturally, but they will guide you in that order. Traders are, of course, very useful. They give quests which are useful as sources of XP and money, as well as giving you markers to POIs that you're probably appropriately equipped for. They also give quest rewards, which are mostly shit, to be honest. Hey, it is free stuff for things you should probably be doing anyway. And naturally, being traders, they sell a bunch of useful stuff, and you can sell stuff to them. And every duke you make from selling is actually a point of XP to you. So selling a bunch of high tier gear after a high level quest can be an excellent way to get that little bit more XP from each quest. Like game stage and loot stage, which I explained in the previous video, trader stage also exists and is governed by your level and your rank in the Daring Adventurer perk, as well as the quest tier you have unlocked. If you max Daring Adventurer, they'll give you plus 40 levels worth of trader stage, which isn't bad. Additionally, you will get a small modifier for each tier you have completed at the traders. I think it's 5% per tier, so that can help a little bit as well. Oh, and by the way, on randomly generated maps or the pre-gen maps, there are often more than one of each of the traders in their biomes. You can find 4 or 5 of the same trader in one biome in some larger maps, so you can find 5 trader Rex all living in different towns. So you may want to find all of them for their various uses. Traders have some other useful stuff you should know about though. This next tip is a quick and easy one, which is to always loot the trader compounds. Trader compounds have a bunch of free loot for you, but the main thing you'll be interested in are the forges and cement mixers, which spawn in every single trader compound regardless of who it is or where they are. These 2 containers have a 75% chance of giving you a forge ahead magazine. These are arguably the most important skill magazines in the game, as these are the ones that gate your access to workstations like workbenches, cement mixers, and things like crucibles. Generally, most traders will give you at least 2 forge aheads for free for just visiting their compound, so definitely make sure to find traders when you visit new towns. Most new towns will have their own trader, but not always. Another trader related tip is to make sure you use the vending machines. You can buy candy from them, which gives you powerful bonuses, for example skull crushers, which give you 50% more melee damage. And the drinks vending machine can sell things like Awesome Sauce, which gives you discounts, and Mega Crush, which gives you stamina and speed boosts. Additionally, you can buy food and water from these if you're a little bit desperate early on, which I imagine is very helpful for new players who don't know how to get food otherwise. Every trader has one of each of these vending machines, so it's another reason to be aware of every trader's location if you can get it. Also, as a side note, trader compounds are completely immune to zombie damage, and you're allowed to stay in there as long as you want during the day, although you will be kicked out at night. So if something really bad happens, you can definitely run to the traders, close the door behind you, and run away through the other end of the compound. The zombies will never catch you, and the traders can't die if you let the zombies in, so you're safe. The last trader related tip in today's video is about challenges. If you go over to the same screen where you did the tutorial, you can find 2 pages of challenges. When you finish these rows of challenges, or in some case just for completing individual challenges, you'll get a quest to get a reward from the trader. For most of these, you will get a selection of skill books to choose from, which is pretty helpful for your progression for things that aren't exactly difficult to do for the most part. However, the zombie kills ones, which are kind of difficult in some cases, are particularly excellent, often giving you rare mods for your armor or weapons and huge amounts of ammo to choose from. So definitely check out these challenges and make sure you're redeeming them as you go. Most of the first page is pretty easy to complete, and a huge amount of the challenges on the second page give you piles of XP for doing basically nothing, like the entering certain biome challenges or finding trader challenges. Before we move on to the next tip, if you're enjoying this video, consider leaving a like and subscribing for more 7 Days to Die tips, tricks and guides and all that good stuff. So that was a lot of trader related advice. Let's cover something to help you in combat. Wooden spikes, the weapon of mass destruction. The final word in the great arms race against the zombie menace. You see, you can make them relatively cheaply and place them wherever you go at a moment's notice. And not only will they damage zombies and animals very efficiently, but they'll also slow them down. So when you're being chased by something you shouldn't have aggroed, like a boar before you have a good weapon, or if you want to thin out a bunch of zombies, wooden spikes are the secret to always rigging the game in your favor. Now there is one major downside: you don't get the XP for any kills the traps secure on their own, but being alive is far more efficient for your XP bar than getting 100% of the XP from all the kills you get. But if you can try and make sure you get the final hit on most zombies, that would be optimal. Let's move on to another early game damage dealing strat: Molotovs and pipe bombs. Molotovs are a very easy source of damage early on that you can loot pretty commonly in the first few days. You can technically craft them, but it's rarely worth the ingredients to do it. One thing you should remember though is that you can set yourself on fire with Molotovs, so keep water on you to douse the flames. You just do that by using water and it'll stop the fire damage. The other weapon I mentioned, pipe bombs, are arguably much more useful. Pipe bombs require a couple of magazines and a workbench to get set up, but once you unlock them, they can be very easily crafted using just gunpowder, iron pipes, and plant fiber, making them some of the most easily accessed explosives in the game. And for the amount of gunpowder they take, they are a very efficient source of damage. You can hold them while the fuse is lit, time your throws to essentially make them simple impact grenades, and they can be absolutely devastating on horde nights. There's no reason not to craft them as soon as you get access to the magazines you need and a workbench. If you want more 7 Days to Die tips and tricks, watch this video on screen right now. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.